What is happening out there, Roto Scouts basketball fans? Welcome to a Wednesday show, gang. Happy hump day out there. Not sure how many people will get today. We didn't have a huge show yesterday, starting late, starting a little bit late again today. Just a chaotic slate getting everything together for this one. Not totally happy with how the board looks right now. Wildly different slates from site to site. It's going to be a lot to go through. 9 games on both sites, but a chaotic beginning to the night. Bunch of games piled into the first hour of the night. So this is going to be a total mess from like 6 to 7, from 7 to 8. We've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 9 games start between 7 and 8 o'clock. And we have, unlike yesterday, kind of a lot of known unknowns still to deal with, and a lot of really impactful ones. It's also kind of a level slate across the board. There's plus and minus spots in terms of defensive matchup, decent team but going up against a good defense. There's things we can nitpick. There's things around pace that we can talk about. But looking at the game totals, basically every game, there's no high end outlier. High end is 236.5 with Sacramento and Utah, and that is a game where we're getting a lot of on FanDuel and like mix and match pieces on DraftKings, but some high end players. But everything is basically between that and then 226.5. So it is a 10-point swing, but everything's in the middle 220s to middle 230s, except for a low end outlier, OKC at Brooklyn, 217.5. But Brooklyn has so many missing pieces that we're getting some Brooklyn value. It's just an ugly slate. And again, just based mostly on pricing, some of these guys getting opportunities are wildly different across sites. Like you can see at the top of the board, we're sorted right now by DraftKings. I have zero faith in this Kyle Anderson play, but he's coming up at 68% where I have him right now in 24 minutes. He's 4,200 on FanDuel. He's only 34 on DraftKings, and he's got eligibility at both forward spots. So even with a minimal overall projection, he comes up a ton on DraftKings. On FanDuel, 14%. Same with the next guy down, Daron Sharp. Looks like a great play. That was the guy who I was mentioning was coming up as a value out of Brooklyn because Nick Claxton is suspended. Daron's coming up at 48.6% in our top 150, and that's just level with the field. That's not even a position at 4,200 on DraftKings for a center. At 58 on FanDuel, he's not coming up at all. We got him once. If you flip the board, it's going to be Jordan Clarkson up here. Jordan Clarkson, Walker Kessler, smashing the FanDuel board. Clarkson at 5,900, Kessler at 71, but with a monster scoring potential on FanDuel. They come up in the single digits on DraftKings. Clarkson at 64, Kessler just with a lower overall score for the money on DraftKings. Zach Collins coming up like crazy on FanDuel. Coming up a lot on DraftKings at a good value, but not nearly as much as on FanDuel overall in the raw sense. Very different slate from site to site. It's going to be a weird one to talk through. I'm going to try and knock it out in about an hour like we did yesterday. Hit the hour on the head yesterday, which was great. Kenny Woodhouse is here. Good to see you, buddy. Michael Knack. Good to see you. Anthony Taylor. Love it. Cujo's here. Hello, buddy. Not sure if he is here, but congrats to Logan L. Grew from the Discord. Also a guy from the old place. That's whose logo he's got on his winning lineup from last night. But Logan dropped his win into the Discord overnight last night. Ty Jerome, Peyton Pritchard, Bradley Beal, Santi Aldama, Kelly Olynyk. I almost called him Kyle Olynyk for reasons that escape me. Kelly Olynyk. Luka Doncic, Bol, who hit the board late. And then Kyrie Irving on DraftKings. Took down 100K in the 555. Obviously a big entry contest, but took down the 100K there. And then came in, I think he said second or third, second in the larger field contest, the $15, and took another 15K or 17K on top of that. So pretty solid little night there for Logan. Not bad. Solid player, solid participant in the community. So love to see it. Congrats. Hopefully at least some of that came from what we've talked about, some of the projections from here. A lot of those guys were guys we talked about yesterday, and then the guys who hit the board late. And again, we're going to have a lot of things change. This is going to be one of those shows that is really relevant right now, and within the hour, it is not going to be relevant. So just buckle up for that. Wildly different slate by the time lock hits. Philadelphia 76ers at the New York Knicks. Knicks favored by 10. Karl Anthony Towns technically questionable. Highly projected. OG Anunoby is probable. 230-point total in that one. Knicks should handle their business. Anybody from the starting five is fine. On the Philly side, good. Not a big fan of that Philly squad. We should see some minutes though for Andre Drummond. Joel Embiid is out. Yabu's also out. So Drummond should pick up some time. I don't love it. He's not been the old Andre Drummond who put up those massive per minute scores when he got opportunities, but he is landing a little bit. Pulled the wrong file up. I was going to resort by DraftKings. He is landing a little bit, I think, on DK here. He should be one of our... There he is. Yeah, so on DraftKings, we got him at 20%. He's only 4,000 over there. I've only got him at 22 minutes. Nothing matchup against Karl Anthony Towns like defensively and in the paint as far as Andre Drummond doing Andre Drummond things. But again, that's just kind of been limited this year. 1.07 per minute. We'll get into it. Portland at Washington. Good matchup for the Portland side of things. 6-point spread. They're favored on the road. 233-point total in that one. Not an unappealing game. I'm sure we'll see some pieces and parts from the Portland side. Not sure what we'll get out of the Wizards. Sarr is out again, so we'll have the scraps around Richaun Holmes and so on. Boston at Detroit. Boston with a lot of our question marks that we're looking at. We had, obviously, the late scratch last night with Kristaps Porzingis, who was projected up because of that situation with, no Cornette, no Horford, et cetera, et cetera. Porzingis ended up looking great. Scratched before tip. After lock, before tip. Went to doubtful and then did not play. I had him in like half my lineups. That wasn't great. Really annoying. Can't understand why the NBA can't get this under control. But when that happens, it's super frustrating. What I was saying in Discord last night is they should just implement a rule. Make it 3 p.m. in whatever time zone you're in is the mandatory reporting time. That means that West Coast games, you have to report your starters and who your active players are by 3 p.m. West Coast, regardless of back-to-back or other circumstance. And unless something demonstrably tragic or demonstrably like a guy falls down the stairs and breaks his leg and can't play, unless something happens, a coach gets fined if he changes the starting unit before the game starts. If a player scratches after that announcement, especially a starter, he has to miss 3 games. And if he's legitimately hurt, 3 games is not a big ask. If they're just dicking around, that's an actual penalty. And a 3 p.m. report time in every time zone makes it so that West Coast games, you get at least by 6 o'clock, an hour before East Coast locks. Is that so difficult? Drives me nuts. And you would still get nonsense. But I mean, let's tighten this up. Drives me nuts. Toronto at Indy. Indy favored by 10.5 in a home game, 233.5. Pieces and parts on both sides of that one. You can definitely find some upside. You've got questionable Tyrese Halliburton and questionable TJ McConnell on the Indy side of that one. That could have a massive impact. But a pacey game, decent total. Definitely one to draw some at least mid-range guys from. OKC and Brooklyn, like I mentioned, the low end scoring-wise, 217.5. OKC favored by 16.5 on the road. Pushover spot for them. Just a really, really ugly game. But we'll get some Dayron, as you can see on the board there, because of Nick Claxton being out. We'll talk about some of the other pieces. The Nets also have some question marks still. The Hawks at the Heat. Just 2.5 point spread. Heat favorite at home. 231-point game. Not a bad option on the Heat side. You can see some Kyle Anderson like we talked about up at the top of the board. There's also some other pieces that are coming out of Miami. Decent spot for Bam. Decent spot for Hero. So we'll see. The Clippers at the Bulls. This is a decent spot for the Clippers side of things, especially at the top end. 9-point spread favoring the Clippers on the road. Bulls supposed to get Io back. 228-point total overall. No Vooch for the Bulls, so we'll talk about some of the spare parts that we're going to be getting to for value from them as well. Sacramento at Utah, pushover spot for the Kings. They're favored by 9 on the road. 236.5-point total, again, is our high watermark for the slate. But we are getting some pieces from Utah because they continue to have the majority of their high-end players are out. San Antonio at Houston to round things out. 9-point spread favoring Houston at home. 227.5-point total there. Definitely high-end players on both sides. Probably favor the Houston side. I'm sure we'll see some Şengün coming through. Yeah, he's right here. I'm sure we'll see some Some Thompson in here somewhere. There he is. Nope, that's Ajer. Jalen Green's down here. Well, Zaman. Would have thought he would have been there. We'll find him. So a lot of interesting spots game wise, but again, it is kind of a tightly packed Vegas board. As far as the ins and the outs, probables: Justin Edwards, Paul George is available, Quentin Grimes is probable, OG is probable for the Knicks, Trae Young, Tyler Hero's available, Kel'el Ware is probable, Andrew Wiggins, Isaiah Hartenstein's available, Zach Collins and Kevin Huerter are probable, Keon Ellis is available, and Walker Kessler's available. Questionables: these are big. Jaylen Brown, Sammy Hauser, Kristaps Porzingis right out of the gate. Dennis Schroeder, Karl Anthony Towns, Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl, Tyrese Halliburton and TJ McConnell, Bam Adebayo, Ayo Dosunmu, EJ Liddell, technically G League 2A, may or may not be there. Outs, this is a long list. Luke Cornett, Simone Fontecchio, Jaden Ivey, Joel Embiid, Eric Gordon, Kyle Lowry, Jared McCain, Gershon Yabusele, Mitch Robinson, DeAndre Ayton, Matty Thybulle, Robert Williams III. Matty Thybulle, by the way, has had the worst sprained ankle in the history of time, or they're just lying to us. Robert Williams III, Sadiq Bey, Malcolm Brogdon, Alex Sarr, Brandon Ingram, Garrett Temple, PJ Tucker, Isaiah Jackson, Kobe Buffkin, Jalen Johnson, Vic Krejci, Larry Nance Jr., Nikola Jovic, Drew Smith, AJ Mitchell, Nikola Topic, Nick Claxton is suspended. Noah Clowney, Anthony Melton, D'Angelo Russell, Cam Thomas, Tariq Whitehead. There's all your Nets. Norm Powell still out for the Clips. Jalen Smith, Nikola Vukovic, Patty Williams are out for the Bulls. John Collins, Elijah Harkless is in the G League. Taylor Hendricks, Lowry Markin, and Colin Sexton are all out, and Oscar Tshiebwe is still in the G League. Charles Bassey, Victor Wembanyama are out. Tari Eason, Fred VanVleet, and Cody Zeller all out. Yeah, Scotty Barnes' Q tag is definitely important. Power nails it there. Kyle Anderson, yeah, it makes sense with Kyle Anderson. I am uncomfortable with Miami minutes, though, outside of, like, Hero, Wiggins, Bam. Especially, though, if you get Bam out and we free up another, 30-some-odd minutes there. It's just going to be a mess. That'll vault Ware further up the board. I'm not sure where we're getting him right now. But, yeah, obviously, out of the, 10 guys that were on that list of questionables, essentially everybody except for, let's say, Dennis Schroeder's a minor impact overall. EJ Liddell, not relevant, really. Again, that's just a guy on a two-way that they listed as questionable. But everybody else on that list is impactful. Star caliber to at least good mid-range player. And, normally if we get a situation with, Tyrese Halliburton out, that would vault TJ McConnell up. But if McConnell's also out, that's just going to create a mess around a lot of the guys in the middle for Indy. So, lot to keep an eye on going into lock. And that's why, again, this is going to be messy with 7 of the 9 games starting in that first hour. Portland, Washington, Boston, Detroit, Toronto, Indy, Philly, New York are all at 7. OKC, Brooklyn, and Atlanta, Miami are at 7:30. And then the Clips and the Bulls are at 8 o'clock. And then there's an hour till the last 2 games. Going to be fun for me. Let's get into this thing a little bit here. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Check out rotoscouts.com if you're new here. Everything at RotoScouts under $1 a day to access all the different sports that we're covering at whatever time of year it is. Right now, that's NBA and NHL. MLB coming real soon. Season-long MLB content coming sooner than that. I know I keep saying it. It will hit the site very shortly. And let's cut to guards here. Also, check out our guys over at acemind.io for all your sim and optimization needs. Promo code RotoScouts, all in caps. 20% off your first month over there still. Those guys have some great product for baseball. Great product for basketball, obviously, that we use to create these sim values against the field. All right, still getting into things here. The guard position is fairly flat on DraftKings. That's kind of noteworthy. That is correctly sorted, right? Yeah. Yeah, so our most highly exposed guys on DK, Kyle Anderson, Day'Ron Sharpe, Kawhi Leonard getting a ton. And then Zach Collins. Nobody among the guards, and then we're already below 30% exposure. So it is actually kind of a flat board. And I do think that's kind of reflective of the nature of what I was talking about with the Vegas board, where it's not like one or two runaway freight train games and then everything else is significantly offset. There's a big group of games all in one spot. So we're below the field on Anthony Simons, but it is a very good spot for Portland going up against Washington. He's played this season at .99 on DraftKings. Pretty quality player, point guard and shooting guard eligible. He's only 6,700. He's short of the value mark, but you'll note, so is every single guard on the board. That's another reason we've got kind of a flat board. So what that means is you can just kind of pick and choose your spots today with everybody at guard that's relevant landing between 28 and 14% exposure. That's 10 guys right there at an average price of 76. Nobody lower than 59. Nobody higher than 86 in that group. All with a variety of guard eligibility. You can really do a lot of swapping around between that. So you can chase ownership and create leverage. The Sims didn't really get to anybody above the field, which is shocking. How are we below? We're on DraftKings, we are below the field technically on every single guard. I didn't think that was necessarily possible. That's really interesting. So, again, that just hammers home that point. You can definitely choose, all right, I like Malik Monk here going up against Utah. They get torched by guards. He's only 75, 5.13 value, not far off the mark of what Anthony Simons is giving me up higher. So maybe I build a little position on Malik Monk at the expense of a couple shares here, a couple shares there. You don't have to give anybody a big haircut to boost one or two of these guys to a strong position against the field. So even though they didn't necessarily sim out that way and the sim kind of wants it flat, I do think you could build a couple little forts here and just move the chess pieces around somewhat, to mix metaphors. And you could throw, honestly, Harden, Giddey into that bucket as well, Kelly Oubre. They're not that far off the mark. I cut it at 14, so I guess Giddey was in there. But you could drop Harden into that. He's just offset by price a little bit from that group, and he's at a upper end projection. Very, very good spot for him. You can see Lonzo coming out of that game on the other side. We talked about, briefly mentioned Kawhi up at the top of the board there. Looks great. Kobe White a few spots further down from that game. Yeah, really interesting flat board. Looking at the FanDuel side, we came up pretty flat with the field on everybody over on FanDuel as well. We do have this massive share of Jordan Clarkson, though, to explain part of that away. He is shooting guard small forward. Maybe that's all going through the small forward spot, and we are truly flat to the field. Like leaving him out, it's still 387% because we've got a ton of other multi-position guys. That's not the right way to do that. But if you think about it, point guard, shooting guard, that is 400. There's only one, two. Yeah, a lot of that is actually probably going through small forward. But anyway, we have that massive share of Clarkson, but we're cut differently relative to the field. Dyson Daniels coming up at just 9% and level with the field because he's 8,000 on FanDuel. He's 6,700. Is just his stats count differently site to site. 1.07 per minute on FanDuel, 1.01 per minute on DraftKings. Just a radically different play across sites. Trey looks good. In general, he's 9,400, but one of the upper end projections. We've got on the entire slate, I don't think anybody cracked 50. I think the high end is 49 and change for Shea. Yeah, 49, just over 49 for SGA. So no 50-point projection on the board right now. So just in the raw sense, at 9,400, Trey not far off the mark. We're talking about 2 points short of where SGA is projected. Arguably a lower ceiling, a 1.29 per minute player, and the field is there. And out of all the matchups going up against Miami, not the best spot, but also possibly not the worst the way that they're configured now. So I don't mind the Trey spot, but we are below the field. He's in essentially 1-4 on DraftKings, like 1-6 on FanDuel. Tyler Hero, 31%, but below the field. He is very popular on the FanDuel slate. Shooting guard and point guard eligible, 8,500 on that site, 8,600, but only point guard eligible on DraftKings. We got him below the field on both, but we've got more in our pocket on the FanDuel slate with the multi-guard eligibility. He's also just under the mark, 4.98, call it as good as 5, and hitting the value point on the nose. On DraftKings, 5.20, it's a little bit further from our 5.5 that we want, but Hero looks like a good option on either side. Monk, as mentioned, I definitely think is at worst a good pivot point for a lot of these guys. And that's the case, as we always talk about. Here's Zach LaVine right there. Is anybody else from Sacto? Are they all forward? So just with Sacramento, it always comes down to just they have that big crunch of guys that plays mid-30s minutes. Any one of those guys, any two of those guys, going to be fine in any given lineup ahead of lock, and then you just roll the dice. That's why they play the games. But a couple of those guys will succeed, and the rest will fail or be mediocre. But a lot of them won't totally tank your lineups. They're just appropriately priced. So we get them level with the field a lot of the time, around 20% for Zach LaVine, level with the field around 20% for Malik Monk. If you like one better than the other one, by all means, take him. RJ Barrett, just 2% right now on FanDuel, 7,700. 20% below the field for 7,300 on DraftKings. Plays very differently price-wise, but we are already way off the value mark. Keep in mind, again, we're looking for 5.5 here. I think part of this is just driven by his raw scoring, going through those two positions on a weekday. So just that raw total gets floated up. We've got the money to pay for it. So I think he's just kind of getting into lineups because we don't need value at this position. And the raw score will get him there. And that's probably the case for a few of these guys. But if you're looking to do some shopping at other spots and maybe put together a lineup that differentiates among the forwards and clicks together maybe a higher end guy there, then maybe you consider sacrificing some of the guys that land below 5 as you're making your swaps around all this big group of guys from 28 to 12 here. Consider those value marks. You probably would do well to target the 517, the 520 rather than the 495s. And these will be the guys that you draw from. Kelly Oubre, tons of minutes. Not really a major downside spot against the Knicks. It's not like their defense is what's been winning them games this year, but they play slow. Everybody on Philly takes a little bit of a haircut here, even with guys out. I don't love the spot for Oubre. 1% on FanDuel. We did get him 16%. He's got a 510 value score because he's only 5,900 on DraftKings. Wildly different play from site to site. Another one. It's just about that price being so different. So DraftKings, I think you get him. I think the 15-16% is about right. Probably be below the field just because it's not the highest end player out of all these guys in that group of with all that swappability. Again, I just keep highlighting this group of players, but they're super relevant with the way this fell. Look how his 0.85, even if you're looking at last year, the 0.92, look how it stands out low from the field of the group that he's in. So why overload with that guy? Let's undercut that guy a little bit. Kind of defies my value point I was making a second ago, but let's undercut that guy a little bit based on where the rate is and build up again on guys that have better just overall rates. Seems very clear. So Oubre is fine, but he needs a ton of minutes to get there. Josh Giddey, we saw explode for nearly 60 in their last game, 31.4 minutes. Not exactly, a ton. It's technically slightly less than what I've got him projected for today at 32. Point guard, shooting guard eligible on FanDuel. 7,700 on DraftKings, point guard only. We got him 14% of the time. I like Giddey here at 77 better than I like that Oubre spot for sure. 1.20 per minute. So just a better buy. It's not the same price, obviously, different positionally. But just talking about a guy who landed in similar shares, I'd be looking to build that up more, and I would be happy taking this down a little further. Giddey on FanDuel didn't really land 4.68 value. Shy of the mark. 2.67% level with the field. If you're at 5, you're fine. If you're at 8, you're probably still fine. There is a ceiling on that play. Harden is one I'm kind of surprised. I actually thought I had him a little bit high, but maybe not. We got him less than the field, 7% on the FanDuel slate, 12% on the DraftKings slate, 9,800 on DK, 9,800 on both sites, excuse me. 1.26 per minute FanDuel, 1.31 per minute DraftKings this season. James has been good. Millie's here. America's loser is in here. Nuke is popping a couple of zins. Popping a couple zins like he's RFK Jr. in a confirmation hearing. I love how not subtle that was. No political take whatsoever. I think most of you guys know where I stand on these things anyway, but just the idea that you're sitting in a congressional hearing and you go like, As though nobody would notice. It's like so ridiculous. Michael Nack says, can't pay that price for Giddy on FanDuel, 8,300. Yeah, and that's why we're getting him just 3% of the time. But again, I think he's fine. Like, he falls into the same bucket as most of these guys. If you're getting Hero at 85, he's not that far offset from Giddy at 83. You're talking about a 4-point swing, 3.5-point swing, but that's with Hero projected for 4 additional minutes. So I don't think Giddy's bad at that price, but yeah, we're not getting a lot of them for that reason. But yeah, I wouldn't mind having more Harden here, really on either site. You might see him go, where do I have it at rate? Because like I said, I thought I had him over projected. He is the 3rd most highly projected player on the slate. I'm giving him the model 135 today. 135 DraftKings. I guess I could give him a little bit more than that. I might nudge Harden a little bit. Not a ton. I'm talking about like a point just to make sure we get a little bit more, maybe level him up to the field a little bit. I want to be at least with the field on Harden here because it's a great spot for them going up against the Bulls. That one might go up a little. Yep. Let's leave it at that, but yep, with you, bro. On all sides, really. I mean, you could say that without choosing a side and being political about it. But yes, let's talk basketball. That's what we're here for. We don't have enough subscribers for me to be losing subscribers. Lonzo, in 26 minutes at 5,000, we're getting him. 31% of the time. He burnt us last time by playing only 8 minutes, came out of the game, 9.9 FanDuel points. Had a bunch of them that day. Looks like we're going to have him again today. I'm not wild about it. I liked it a lot better when he was 2 more minutes on top, but maybe he goes back to that level. It's also not a fantastic matchup for the Chicago side of that game. It's a very good matchup for the Clippers side. But Lonzo's cheap enough as long as we're getting around those minutes. He is at a 4.98 value on FanDuel. That's right around the mark we're looking for. 5.20 value with multi-position on DraftKings for 4,700. We got him 12% of the time, but that is pretty hard undercut to the field. So keep an eye on that one. I think that's probably where you want to be on him, though. If you could ever get him to 30, then you'd have something on your hands. But right now, no. Right now, I think I'm comfy being around the 12, and I might even look to undercut it maybe down to like 25 and a harder undercut to the field on FanDuel. But he's looking like a little better of a value. Well, no, about the same value, I guess. 4,700 over here in the multi-position helps. Just where the field is at, I guess it's creating that difference. Jalen Brunson, 6%. If Cat doesn't play, there's probably a little additional rate on the table for Brunson. I'll take a look at what it is. But for the Knicks, it's basically an are who they are spot against the Philly team. They should handle their business against pretty easily. 89 on DraftKings. We're getting Brunson at 12% or 11 and change below the field, but easy to play, easy to skip. Aaron Nesmith in 24, not coming up at all on FanDuel for 47, both forward spots, but at 38, shooting guard and small forward, coming up decent amount. 11.3%, that's below the field. I can see the field being 15, 18%. If we get news for Indy, because remember, we've got Halliburton and McConnell both questionable, so we could just see a general pickup of minutes around all the Indy guys. Nembhard, a few spots further down, would pick up a couple additional minutes in that situation. He'd probably be the guy I'd lean to a little bit more, I think. But either way, you're going to see these guys float up. And at the $3,800 price, that will help Aaron Nesmith get into some lineups. It's a pushover matchup for them against Toronto. So, the hell was that? I think somebody just got shot. I think it's actually the garbage truck. Good boy. Can you go lie down? I know you're excited about Aaron Nesmith, but I'm not. Go lie down. Damani Kamara benefits from going up against Washington here, but 6,300, 22% is level with the field on FanDuel, and that's only a 4-4 value. Not exactly a runaway freight train of value. That might be another one that's just going through the small forward spot, and just based on the raw price being a little bit better than some of the other raw prices it's competing with, I don't really see massive upside there. He's a 0.79 per minute player. I think I've got him a little bit higher than that based on the matchup today. But I don't love that. Yeah, 0.78 DraftKings. I've got him 0.82 today. Looks like I'm a little short, too, of the projection from the site where the ownership came from. So I'm actually kind of surprised we're level with the field. So that's got to be what that is. It's just forcing shares based on raw score there. I think he's mediocre. I wouldn't mind coming up a little bit lighter than the field there, even with that good matchup if he's going to be around that popular. On DraftKings, we only got him 10%. This makes sense to me. 4.91 value score for the 28 fantasy points for 5,700. He's more expensive on FanDuel, too. I really don't like that. Small forward must be really weird on FanDuel today. Then we're just getting mix and match shares of everybody else. Jalen Green, high-end player. It's a decent enough matchup. Played 37 in their last game, put up just 35. It's around a point per minute. It's around what he does on average, but he does have upside when that shot's falling a little bit. So I don't mind a few shares of Jalen Green here, but we are below the field at 8%. 7,500 on both sites. Just a solid player with very, very solid mid-30s minutes. Speaking of Keontae George, it's more like lower 30s for him, but one of the few guys that we know exactly what he's going to be coming out of Utah right now. 6,700 point guard, shooting guard on FanDuel. We are short of the value mark, but we got him 15% of the time. That is below the field, though, and not a gentle undercut to the field. On DraftKings, 6,900, we only got him in 8%. That's a hard undercut to the field. He's all right. And that's kind of the read on a lot of the pieces from Utah outside of, obviously, that. Kobe White, 6% mix and match on FanDuel, 8% on DraftKings. Halliburton, if he goes, 2%, 7%. Nothing special for him, really. Just in his who he is spot. Price. Actually, I guess that DraftKings price is pretty low, 8,200. Could we get him a little bit more? That's the issue. I'm already giving him mid 1.2s. He's been playing at 1.18 for the season. Bouncing around a little bit, but I don't think he's a bad option here as a rotational piece, maybe, for some of these guys. If you wanted to throw him into that group of those guys, he's got upside enough to get there at that low price. At the higher FanDuel price, I'm not really a fan. A lot of mix and match through these guys. Grady Dick, Andrew Nembhard, Zaire Williams. Single-digit shares of all those guys on both sites. Any one of them is fine in a mixer. Tyrese Martin's on the board there a little bit. Not on FanDuel, but a little bit on DraftKings because he's 3,300 with an expectation of low 20s minutes. Manuel Quickly at 72 with multi-guard eligibility on FanDuel. 7,000 point guard only on DraftKings. Low mid single digits at best. We do have some FanDuel outliers here, though. Several. Again, this is why this slate is so radically different across sites. So Jordan Clarkson, again, 5,900, just a cheap price. He's 1.06 per minute on FanDuel. Mid-20s usage rate, upper 20s, honestly, 26.7%. And with guys missing from that team, should be able to do whatever he wants. This is in only a 29-minute projection as well. So bear that in mind. If he goes over 30, every additional second that he plays, he gains value at that price. We got a ton of them at 66%. That's way above the field. Obviously, you can draw that down all you want, but he's looking like a standout play right now on a day where we don't really have them. On DraftKings, he is barely relevant to the field. 4.6%. That's an undercut, but that means he's probably 10-ish%. What I will point out is that 519 value for 6,400 shooting guard only is higher than a lot of these guys in this range. So in that sense, maybe you can get there and grab some additional shares, but the standout spot for him is on FanDuel. Collier from that same group, level with the field at 27% on FanDuel because he's 6,000 over there. That's again in a 29-minute projection. He's played at 0.83 on 18% usage overall, carrying a 34.9% assist rate, which is where most of his points are going to come from, but just looks like a fairly solid spot with relatively strong probability of getting into the upper 20s of minutes. The true range is probably 26 to 30, something like that, but I like him to be around this territory. So I think we're there. On DraftKings at 64, we're really not. We're falling way short of the field, just 2%. There's Amen. All the way back at the beginning of the show, I was mentioning him. We are level with the field on Amen on FanDuel. Shooting guard, small forward eligibility, 8,900. Whatever you can power through the small forward for sure on the FanDuel slate, apparently. We'll take upside guys there. 1.08 per minute from Amen this year. I don't mind that. 8,900 is a pretty decent price. 8,600 on DraftKings, we really didn't get there. Just getting boxed out by a lot of those shares that are going to that just big plateau of guys. But I do think he's another guy you could at least throw into the blender. He's going to be, if we're at 2% and that kind of undercut to the field, it means he's probably, 6-8%? Easy enough to catch up to. Jalen, if he goes, not looking really relevant, probably more relevant to the slate if he does not play. Jordan Poole is an outlier. FanDuel, 19% and above the field, 7,400. That's one of the few Washington guys we're getting out of that game. Again, that looks better for Portland than that one, but somebody from Washington is going to have to succeed. Quentin Grimes coming up at 16% on FanDuel, barely getting him at all on DraftKings. He's 57 FanDuel shooting guard small forward, 58 shooting guard only. It's probably the multi-position that's helping him. He's not bad. He's been playing at 0.87 this year. The minutes have been up, and last time they dropped, they went back to 24 last time out. But with the missing pieces from Philly, I think we're okay there. Since that popped at me, let me double check that. Justin Edwards is back for Philly tonight. Could be an impact there. Drummond and Bono going to get the big man minutes for the most part. Counsel David Roddy's in the mix for a couple minutes at the end. Yeah, I think we're probably secure in the Quentin Grimes minutes. I wouldn't go nuts chasing him anyway. We're at 16% level with the field. If I had to make a positional decision, it would definitely be a negative position relative to the field just based on that 4.72 value score anyway. So I think you can knock Quentin Grimes down. It's not exactly a good price for him anyway. Just not a lot of bodies for Philly. And then nobody else standing out. We do have some onesie-twosie shares on FanDuel of Chris Paul, Davion Mitchell, Lou Dort, Aaron Holiday, but nobody to really talk about. Any one share of any of those guys is fine. A couple shares is fine, but nothing significant. Yeah, Power, it's going to be chaotic around lock, but you'll get it's definitely going to sprint out of the gate and then slow down toward the very end of the night. And then we'll have a big change at the end of the night. People who think they're winning will end up losing. People who think they're losing will end up winning. Michael Max, I think the Knicks take their recent troubles out on the dog shit Sixers. Yeah, I could see that. Favored by 10. Knicks tend to beat up on some weak teams, and the Sixers obviously not competitive right now. Let's get into some forwards and centers. 5:26. We'll go, it'll be over an hour. We'll be out of here by 6. Appreciate everybody who's here hanging out. I know it is not the best time for this show. I know you have other shows to watch, so those of you that choose to fly with our airline. Anyway, you know what I'm getting at. You guys rock. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. Check out rotoscouts.com if you're new. Check out acemine.io if you're new. So that's a lot of Kyle Anderson on DraftKings. Not that much Kyle Anderson on FanDuel. He's 4,200 power forward only on the FanDuel slate. He's 3,400 small forward power forward on the DraftKings slate. You can see those value scores. 5.5 plus on FanDuel is way over the mark. We're only looking for 5. But we've got guys with just higher raw scores, I think, going through the power forward spot as well. So I think he's just getting kind of boxed out, even though he's got value on him on FanDuel. On DraftKings, that 34 is just kind of undeniable. 6.68 value score. 68% of our top 150 lineups. Well above the field. You can obviously undercut that. It's slow-mo. If you haven't been burnt by slow-mo in your life, you haven't played NBA DFS before. The minutes are fragile. The production is fragile. Everything about this play is very, very fragile. But that's what makes it a good DFS GPP play. Dayron, I think we're a little bit more secure in the idea of him getting 22 to 26, or maybe it's more like 20 to 24. But I've got him 24. I just kind of split the big man minutes down the middle. In 24 minutes, he's a tremendous per minute guy. He's a guy we go to when he gets opportunities to play 20 plus minutes. He doesn't even need upper 20s. 1.23 per minute FanDuel, 1.21 per minute DraftKings. All right, among eligible power forwards and centers on DraftKings by DK scoring, his 1.21 equals what RJ Barrett puts up per minute. It exceeds what Kawhi Leonard puts up. The only guys above him, Şengün at 1.35, Scotty Barnes slightly above him at 1.25, Sabonis at 1.35. It's literally only those three guys from here anyway. Maybe a couple guys down here. Yeah, 1.42 for Cat, Porzingis. You get a few more down here, obviously, among the stars. But even a star like Sabonis, he's above him. But he's one of the few guys. So, standout spot for Day'Ron Sharpe at 4,200 at center only on DraftKings. Massive, massive value play. We're only level with the field with him in essentially half of our lineups. I think you take more. I really do. It's that good of value. Especially if we get the announcement that he's starting. But even if he doesn't, I don't think it really matters. Kawhi, standout spot for everybody. Clippers. Kawhi at 7,200. We're getting a ton of them on DraftKings. We're just gently above the field, though. 44%. He's popular, but deservingly so. I want plenty of Kawhi. I want plenty of Harden. 28% on the FanDuel slate. It's the same read. We're essentially slightly above the field, but not necessarily a big enough position. I'd like to have a little bit more, even at 78, even at the higher price, but just a bargain over here. 5.52. We're above our value threshold. Zach Collins, another center, playing way up for value. 6.48 value score. We have four guys among power forwards and centers above 6 when we're looking for 5.5 value. You can play two of them together among the centers. You can play, you can get 3 of these guys because you've got small forward, power forward there, and then you pop one of those guys at the util. So having 3 6+ values in your lineup is a very easy path to building a lineup today and getting essentially whatever you want in basically every other spot. And you can just mix and match your way through those 4 guys as far as where your values are. That's why we got such a flat board of mid-range type guys, mid-price type guys among the guards. That's why we didn't have any standout values among the guards, because they're all right here. It's similar on FanDuel, but maybe not as stark. Keep in mind, we're looking for 5. So the 5.44 on Şengün, the 5.60 on Collins, the 5.57 on Slow-Mo, even though he doesn't come up. They do stand out. But these 6s stand out a little bit more. Şengün is tremendous on both sides. Bear in mind, there's no Wemby on the other side of that anymore. 23% over here. I wouldn't mind having a little bit more. If I'm building a position, I want to go toward the field on that one at 8,500. On FanDuel, we're a little bit further offset, so it might be a little bit more difficult to build back. But again, 5.4 value, probably the top star, center eligible star on FanDuel. Yeah, by far. So if you're not going Day'Ron on FanDuel, which is a different play on FanDuel, by the way. I raved about him on DraftKings, but I didn't address the fact that he's 5,800 on FanDuel. He's under the value mark on FanDuel, which is absurd. He should not be 5,800. He's been playing 17 minutes a night. That's a silly, silly price, but it happens to be correct for today, so it erases his value, which sucks. Collins, 5.60 value, though. He's there, and he's power forward eligible, so you can play him alongside Şengün. You can go to Drummond a little bit because he is right around the value score, but we got Drummond a lot lighter than the field on FanDuel. At 5,000, again, with Drummond, the issue is this is who the field remembers Andre Drummond being 1.37 per minute. Anytime he hits the floor, he already has 10 rebounds. That's not who he's been. 1.08 this year. It's a different guy. So I don't get carried away at 5,000. I think a couple shares is fine because, he is around the value score, and that's not a terrible projection. And if he goes 24, 26, it goes up and up. But I don't want to draw it back to the field. At 4,000 on DraftKings, you can talk. You got him in 1 in 5 lineups, and he is one of our 6+ values. So you definitely want to be there. But out of those 6+ values, we're with the field there on Zach Collins, and I wouldn't mind a little bit more. We're with the field there at 50% on Day'Ron Sharpe, and then we're way above the field on the Kyle Anderson one right now. So out of those 4 guys, we are undercutting the Drummond spot, and I think that makes sense. Drummond should have the opportunity to abuse Cat in the paint, and if Cat's not there, then he's going up against Precious Achiuwa, Ariel Porty. There's reason to believe that Drummond could succeed there, but I don't know how chasey we really want to get about it based on just what he's been this year. Barrett we talked about because he was on the board for DK, but again on FanDuel, not really getting there on DK. Getting there, but undercutting the field, 1 in 5, but below the field. Andrew Wiggins, popular on both sites. We're undercutting him to the field on both. He is above the value mark on FanDuel, which is noteworthy. 6,700, not a bad price. Good matchup on the Miami side going up against Atlanta here. So I don't mind a little bit more Wiggins, but I think since we're at 30+% already, and that's a hard undercut to the field, I'm pretty good there. I don't know that I want to chase that much more Andrew Wiggins. He's fine, but at 6,700, he's not exactly cheap for his point per minute. I think part of that 31% even that we're getting there, and the field is there, so part of the field's ownership is probably just that how the forward positions are functioning on FanDuel today, where raw scoring is just getting into lineups. On DraftKings, he's 66. He's small forward only. All the same things apply. He's short of the value mark there. 5.40. It's very close to it, but he's short. 19% below the field. I think that's where we want to be with Andrew Wiggins. I don't know that I want to go nuts with it because that's already pretty decent exposure. If I've got him in more than 1 in 4 lineups on FanDuel and 1 in 5 lineups essentially on DraftKings with a very established position against the field, that makes me happy. And for a player like that and this spot at those prices, I think being below is correct. Pascal Siakam, if you want to chase the idea of revenge, go ahead. Obviously, it worked out for Luka yesterday. Although, I mean, what did he end up with? I forget what his final score was. I think he led the slate overall, but it's not like he put up 100. But Siakam looks good anyway. I mean, 7,900, 30% exposed on the FanDuel slate. Oh, I think somebody mentioned in chat as well. I saw it. I know I saw it. There it is. TJ McConnell out, Halliburton expected. So that's the other way around from the situation that would have created value. TJ coming off the board just throws, I think I have him at 16 minutes. So it will throw a couple minutes toward the Nembhard's Neesmith of the world probably as we go down the board there. But the big impact obviously would have been McConnell in, Halliburton out, and we aren't getting that. But Siakam's going to look good. Power forward only on FanDuel at 79. We got him 30%, essentially level with the field. 112 per minute overall for the season. On DraftKings, we got him 19% for 7,600, same positioning. Below the field there, but I think it's reasonable to consider him around where the field is. I've got him right around his season-long production. I have him at 115 per minute today. He's 114 per minute DraftKings. You could conceivably give him another point or two on top if you wanted. This is one of the higher Vegas totals on the board as far as their implied total. I might actually give him a nudge. I'm talking to myself into that as I'm thinking about it. I might have Siakam a point low. I don't know that I do it just because of the fact that we're like probably where we're supposed to be against the field, and if I give it to him, then we're just going to be with the field. I'll debate that after the show when I do the updates. But regardless of whether I give him that point or not, he looks good. He'll only look a little bit better, potentially. What do I have him on minutes? Maybe I'll throw in one of those McConnell minutes just for the hell of it, since I've got minutes to spread around. I can fudge that. He averages 33 anyway. If I give him 34, wouldn't be crazy. Levine in 36 minutes. Again, everybody in that that group of 6 guys from Sacramento that plays mid-30s minutes, go for it. Perfectly fine. Some bonuses a few spots further down. We got him 8% on both sites. any one of those guys, any two of those guys in the lineup, perfectly fine. It is a very, very good spot for them going up against Utah. On FanDuel, we have massive shares of Walker Kessler, as mentioned. Kessler-Clarkson day on FanDuel right now. In 32 minutes, Walker Kessler's always just going to project really well on FanDuel. 1.16 per minute for the season. It's a 1.11 player on a different scoring system on DraftKings. Just plays differently across sites. It's one of those guys. 5.84 value right now on FanDuel. That is pretty tremendous. 5.53 on DraftKings is over the mark. We got him 9% of the time there. That's below the field. Field's probably 12, 15, somewhere in that territory. Directionally, with everybody relevant out for Utah, I wouldn't mind a little bit more Kessler, even if that means you're just drawing him up to the field, because he is at above our value threshold when not a lot of guys between there and there are. You have this big group here, and then, guys that under it, approaching it, or way under it there. So I don't mind Kessler as an alternative play on DraftKings. Zar Thompson, mix and match play at best. Below the field, 10% on DraftKings for 53. Way below, even with the field, way lighter than that at 2% on FanDuel because he's 6,600 over there. Going up against Boston's just not going to help anybody from Detroit. I don't recall even saying Cade's name. That isn't going to be good for business. Oh, we did get one share of Cade on FanDuel. 10-7. The pricing today, with the way this is falling, is not helping some of these star caliber guards. SGA, who we didn't talk about either, 0 on both sites. That's in a 32-minute projection. I'm kind of being a little bit light on OKC. They're favored by 16, 17 points again. So I do think there's, reason to believe that he could exceed those scores, obviously. We could see an upper 50s with ease in just a standard game from SGA here. But we're not getting him where he's projected right now, and I think it's a reasonable expectation for projection. Just that low-end game total, that ridiculous point spread. They're going to crush this Brooklyn team. So not a lot going through the stars there. And the point overall was just everything Detroit, not really going to look good going up against Boston. And that applies to Zar Thompson. Talked about Oubre. Miles Turner, 15% FanDuel, 16% DraftKings, just kind of mid. 6,600, 6,100 across sites. There's nothing offensive or beneficial about that price. He's just kind of right flat in the middle of the board. I can't see going out of my way for him, but if he's in a lineup, I'm not going to go out of my way to take him out. He's above the FanDuel value threshold. He's right at it essentially at 5.45 on DraftKings. Nothing wrong with the spot. KJ Martin, another guy, probably going to pull some more minutes. Played 28 in their last game. Everybody continues to be out. I give him back those 28. 5.37 value score on FanDuel. We're only level with the field at 15%. We're not running away with shares, but I think the value is going to be there, at least right now, the way it's projected. That partly depends on him getting a start again. Might adjust it accordingly, depending on what the lineup looks like. But right now, he's coming through. On DraftKings, 10% below the field. But again, another guy pressing up against the value threshold we're looking for. 4,000, he's not a good player. He's a 0.70 per minute guy. So bear that in mind. That's this year. That's last year. 0.67 on DraftKings, even worse. So not somebody you want to go crazy for. But the 28 minutes over the price is all we really care about there. Kamara came up 22%, differentiated across sites, only 10% on DraftKings. He's 57 on DK. He's 63 on FanDuel. Again, everything Portland is going to benefit a little bit from playing against Washington here. But I don't love the Kamara play. I think Simons was coming up a little bit when we looked at it before. I'd rather have him. 0.79 per minute out of Kamara this season. 0.78 on DraftKings. He's mediocre. Low usage guy, 13% usage rate. He's a single-digit contributor as far as assist rate and rebound rate. I don't really know how we arrive at 6,300. And the fact that he's coming up that much, shocking. I talked about this already, didn't I? Losing track. The 4.44 value. Yeah, that 22%. I still find that inexplicable. I realized halfway through that I addressed that while we were talking about guards. 10% exposures to all of Martin Kamara, Zubac at 10% for 7,400. That's not a bad value. That's over the value threshold. We're below the field there. He's carrying a little bit of popularity, but should be able to push around Zach Collins. So I don't mind a little bit more Zubac, but it looks like it'll be difficult to claw your way back to the field on DraftKings, where you maybe consider it. 8,100 on the FanDuel slate. We're only getting him at 3%. That's an undercut to the field, but that means the field's 6-8%. So you take him up to just 10-15%. It's not crazy. He's a 1.20 per minute player with pretty reliable 30-plus minutes. 5.15, we're over the value threshold. That's kind of a sleeper upside play, I'd say, on FanDuel. He's not a secret, but it doesn't. Let's see where the field is actually at. You'd need to go to like 15 to have a minor position on him. But I don't think that's completely crazy. You just sacrifice some of those Kessler shares. Which again, Kessler is a standout option. But if you're just taking a few. And then you take a few from... not Şengün. We're already undercutting Şengün a little bit too hard. I could take a few of those Turner shares pretty easily. I don't mind having a little bit more Zubac. We're at like 1/3 of the field there. Maybe you just go back to half of the field. Just to have a little bit more. Kessler we addressed, but again, FanDuel. Sabonis. Always quality, 9,800, not a bad price. Center and power forward eligibility. I suspect you'll get mostly power forward shares on FanDuel. Center only on DraftKings, 8.67% exposed on both sides, slightly below the field on DraftKings, with the field on FanDuel. I don't mind more Sabonis. He's very well qualified in that group of guys who play mid to upper 30s minutes from Sacramento that you can always get to, and he's got really nothing challenging him from Utah, so plenty to go around for Sabonis, and I just love the stat stuffers. 25.1% assist rate, 19.9% rebounding rate for the big man. Love it. Jeremy Grant is at best a mix and match play. We're at 8% below hard undercut to the field on DraftKings, 5% hard undercut to the field on FanDuel. He's just not been very good this year. 0.81 per minute on both sites overall for the season. 10.3% assist, 4.9% rebounding rate. He is going up against Washington. He is a different play across sites because he's only 54 on DraftKings. The $6,000 price just doesn't really work on FanDuel. He's just expensive for the production we're getting. If we could be guaranteed that we're going back to something like last year, then great. He kind of did that in his last game. If we get something like that, all right. He could get there beneficially against Washington. But I think as a position, I'd rather be below. Buzelis, Kobe White, mix and match pieces. If we take Io off the board, everybody from Chicago looks a little bit better. Tosan, with the expectation of a few minutes, 3,000 dead min price on DraftKings. We're just below the value board, but we're also way below the field, 8%. Field is probably double that or so. But just bear in mind, he's a min-price player with a currently 20-plus minute projection. Do with that what you will. We're talking about a 0.78 per minute guy. Trendon Watford on the other side of the big man minutes for the Nets doesn't look nearly as good as Day'Ron does. 0.94 per minute, 0.96 per minute, though. He's not nothing. If it swings a little, if I go like 26-22 based on the starter, which I may not do, you can see a little bit of an uptick there. But between the two, I'm Day'Ron every time. Zaire Williams, mix and match piece at best. We do have 18% Bam on the FanDuel slate, assuming he plays 8,200. Not a bad price for his 114. 8,400 power forward center on DraftKings. We got him 6% below the field. But it's Bam. There is upside there. Called him out as a guy I didn't necessarily love the last time out, and he rewarded me with just 23.5 FanDuel points in 37 minutes. That is a nut low game for Bam. Glad we weren't on him last time, but I'll take my shot this time. Again, I just kind of like the Miami side going up against Atlanta here. Edwards active, limited to mid-20s minutes. Scotty out. Ooh, that's a biggie. So that'll boost immediately, just top of the head. That boosts RJ in quickly, and probably a little bit for Grady Dick. Copying contents here. They love stuffers. Is that something I said? Oops. Doesn't everybody? Bam warming up. That's a good sign. Ware and Andrew Wiggins are in. That's also good. Where do I have Drew ranked? I do not remember talking about Drew. That'll swing on the news. Yeah, right now, nothing. 2% on FanDuel in 28 minutes. 5,200 both guard spots. 4,800 both guard spots on DK. 0.67. We got him in one share, essentially. But if we get like no Jalen and I toss him a couple additional minutes, then sure. He averages 30. I am a little bit below the average. So there's potentially 2 minutes already there that I could just hand to him. But I don't think it makes him relevant. And with the way that the slate's breaking, he would have to change a lot to really climb this board. $548. Let's get through these last couple of pieces here. Find any outliers we didn't talk about, and then punch out so I can keep things updated. This is going to be a chaotic 6 to 8 p.m. So just, again, buckle up. 7 of the 9 games start between 6, not between 6 and 8, between 7 and 8. Jalen, we talked about. Josh Hart, 10% on FanDuel, just 2% on DraftKings at 79. Is who he is, spot for Josh Hart, but who he is a guy who plays between 37 and like 42 minutes every night. And he needs every one of those minutes to really crush value, but he's also playing up at 1.02, 1.03 this season. So it's not like his rates haven't gone up, as his reputation of being a good DFS contributor have. They have. He's gone up significantly year over year, but part of the equation is also those minutes to get to that salary. I think you can play him. I think where you play him is on FanDuel. Not quite as relevant to the DK slate. Probably a matter, again, of how the positions break, though. Dylan Brooks coming up like crazy on FanDuel at 33 minutes over $4,700. Not my favorite. I would much rather have that much Dylan Brooks and that kind of a position. We are level with the field on FanDuel, though. He's 4,700 shooting guard, small forward. Probably some just going through small forward based, again, on raw scoring there. But, man, that is one of my favorite examples of just a guy who on average usage does so little in most of his appearances. 0.70 per minute this year on 17.1, 0.68 on 17.6. Yeah, he can get his hands on the ball. Yes, he's a much better NBA player than he is a DFS player. But I'm not all that comfy with 36%. I would probably, if I just saw this pop through in results as I'm sorting things and I had time, I would probably knock that down by 10 percentage points, take a negative position to the field, and spend that $4,700 elsewhere. No, I like Simon Snook. We're on to forwards now. Keep going back. Simon's right here. FanDuel 30%, DraftKings 28%. Looks pretty good. He's my favorite piece of that Portland-Washington game. Zubac, Kessler, Sabonis, Zealous. We talked about all these guys. DeRozan's in that group of mid-30s guys, but he's my least favorite from Sacramento. Any single share of him is fine. Any couple of shares is fine, but 10% below the field on FanDuel, 6% and below the field on DraftKings, right where I'd like to be. Okongwu, nothing special. LeVert, Keegan Murray, another guy who's mediocre despite getting those mid-30s minutes. 4% level with the field on FanDuel, 4% under the field on DraftKings. Sean George, talked about already. Reese Shea, 10%. I do not need that 10% of Reese Shea. He's just a mixer. 4,500, we got him 3% on DraftKings. That's where I'd rather be. The only real outlier stands out so far, Jabari Smith. He is slightly above our value threshold on FanDuel. Khalil Ware is at 525. That's well above our value threshold on FanDuel. We didn't get a ton of them. Probably partly because we're getting so much Walker Kessler going through center. But if you're drawing this down at 71, dropping some of those shares into a, where'd he go? Into a probably under-owned Khalil Ware. Not uninteresting. I've got him at 28 minutes. Would have looked better if there was no Bam, but it seems like we're going to get Bam. Jaylen Brown out. All right, there we go. So that'll be an impact. That'll float the Pritchards and Whites of the world. Tatum, I believe, picks up a little bit of rate there. We'll see what happens with KP and with Sammy Hauser, but Sammy Hauser would benefit from that situation. So we know what that looks like. That'll get modified in the next few minutes. Nobody else really popping down here. So to finish that thought, though, Ware could see over 30, but I think we're probably best to keep him conservatively at 28 for that price, and that's giving him a good value mark. So if you get a little bit more here, if you're drawing down some of the other centers, it's got to keep in mind. Chris Middleton, not so much, but we did get him 8% level with the field. The 18% of Jabari Smith, though, stands out a little bit. Power forward only, 5+ value. He's only a 0.76 per minute guy this year on 15% usage. Last year, though, we did have him at 0.91. There's reason to believe in the possibility of success here. It's a decent spot for the Houston side of it going up against San Antonio. So I don't hate that, but I wouldn't look to press beyond that. Level with the field is fine. And honestly, if the field's at 18 and 20 and I'm at 15 and a little bit below, that's also fine. Zinger is in for now. For now, yeah, exactly. Ugh. That killed me yesterday. So mad. I think that's it, though, as far as, no other outliers. No real, everybody down the bottom of the board. There's nobody that even pops like projections-wise down that way. And even a lot of these guys, like Jalen Williams obviously is fantastic. Any given share of Jalen, go ahead. But he's also kind of suffering from, a lack of about 2 minutes from what I'd normally have him at. And just a bad game environment overall. So not really crushing it, despite being a good player. Chet, same story. Hartenstein, same story. Also go down to 26 minutes. But not a lot. A lot of times we'll get some standout dark green projection guys down this territory. We will probably get a little bit more Tatum, but at 36 minutes, it's not like he's going to shoot through the roof now. So I don't know how much we rush off for Tatum. It's probably more the mid-board guys from Boston that we end up wanting. But that will drop. There's Jalen right there at 34 minutes into the bucket. So a lot to do, a lot to change. 5:55, bunch of games coming up in an hour and 5 minutes till lock, and then another 10, 12 minutes till they actually tip. We were talking about that yesterday in Discord too. Always fun. You guys absolutely rock out there. If you haven't done it yet, hit the like button. That actually does help out. If you've never subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. That actually helps out as well. Still trying to make that push for 1,000 subscribers. I feel like they've been saying that for too long now. We'll get over the top when baseball starts, I think, at the very latest. But help me out a little bit. Tell your friends. Check out rotoscouts.com. Everything is under $1 a day to access NBA and NHL right now. MLB coming right around the corner on top of that. NFL lingering out in the distance, but here before we know it most summers. So check out the site, guys, rotoscouts.com. Also check out our sim and optimization partners over at acemind.io. As a reminder, promo code rotoscouts, all in caps, gets you 20% off your first month over there. With that in mind, guys, let me get out of here so I can get this stuff updated. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something and share it when you do, like we saw again. Congrats. I don't know if he came in during the show, but one last time, congrats to our guy Logan Grew. Took down a $117,000 victory last night. Not too shabby across 2 different DK tournaments. Not bad, buddy. So let's see another one of those tonight. And I'll be back tomorrow for more, gang. See ya.